Hi class, it's Ms. Haglund here. We're going to continue our lesson about the pedestrian, and as promised from last time, I'm going to be teaching you different literary devices because that's what we're going to be using as the reasoning and the evidence part of our CER. So when we find a claim, we're going to say what the author is trying to express and give a background information about what is happening within that part of the text. And then your evidence is going to be that direct quote from the text, and then your reasoning is going to be explaining how they used a specific literary element in order to prove that point more. So I'm going to go over a few different literary devices, stylistic devices to kind of discuss different ways that you can approach this paper that we're going to be writing. So I'm going to kind of go through a couple of different ones. I'm not going to give you all of them, but I will give you a shorter list through this video, and then I will be sending you an email with a list of these with their definitions, and if you have questions and you want more examples, please reach out to me. So the first one I want to talk to you is about allusion. So the term allusion means that you are alluding to something or hinting at something. It's a reference to something that's well known without directly stating it. For example, if it were wintertime and I was saying, oh, that elderly man in the red suit, blah, 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 like you would know that I was alluding to Santa Claus because that's a widely known figure, whether or not that's something you celebrate. It's understood. Then another one I want to talk to you about is hyperbole. This is an over-exaggeration about something. I had 10,000 hours of homework last night. That's a hyperbole. You didn't. You may feel that way, but that's not true. And irony, this is one that a lot of people use incorrectly. And irony, I remember when I was learning about it before, maybe not through school, but I had thought it meant something that was coincidental. Irony is not coincidental. It is not having heart surgery on Valentine's Day. That's coincidental. Irony is the exact opposite of what you might think. So there is a short story that you'll read in 9th grade, likely depending on if the curriculum changes, that's called The Cask of Amontillado. And that short story, someone's named Fortunato. And not to give too much away, but it's ironic that that's his name because he's not so fortunate. And I mean, that we'll talk a little bit about foreshadowing because, well, I don't want to give too much about 9th grade for you guys. So mood is the feeling created in the reader by the literary work or passage. It's often suggested by descriptive details. So that one is like, what kind of mood are you getting? How does the author really feel about what they're talking about? And then a symbol, that's anything that stands for something or represents something else. I'm trying to think of the different books that you've maybe read this year. Or if I were just to if I were to say something about, I don't think you guys have read Lord of the Flies, that's what you'll read next year, but there is something, a conch, that symbolizes like control, because the person that holds the conch shell is the one that's in power and is able to talk, kind of like a talking stick maybe you had when you were in elementary school. That's a symbol that stands for something different. And you have to read a lot more within different texts to figure it out all the time. It's not always simple right away as soon as you find out, but once it's mentioned many times, that's one way that you can know that that's being used as a symbol for something else. And some of the other ones I just want to remind you, so foreshadowing is like clues that help the reader predict the future events of the story. So I know you've talked a little bit about that in your language arts class. So the protagonist, right, that's the main character, the good guy, the hero, like the main person of the story. And then the antagonist is the character who presents conflict to the main character, so the bad guy. So if you're thinking of like Cinderella, she would be the protagonist, and then the antagonist would be like the evil stepmother. And I know you guys worked through the Fractured Fairy Tale, and you also learn that there are those different archetypes. So they also fall into those roles as well. Characterization. So that's when that's ways that author use to create and develop a character. So what the character looks like, the way that they talk, what they do, like their actions, what they're thinking and how they're feeling, and then what other characters think about that character. So that kind of helps develop the character that way. And then I know you guys have talked a lot about conflict. So, like there's internal conflict and there's external conflict. So, but there are different kinds of conflicts. So like person versus person is a conflict, person versus nature, person versus society, person versus self. So that's your internal conflict, and then person versus the unknown, which right now, we were writing a story about our lives right now in this point in time, spring of 2020, we are all battling the unknown. So if you want to start a story, you could use that conflict as the main element of your story. Dialect is like the form of language spoken by people in a particular region or group. So we live in Minnesota. One thing that we're called out for a lot is saying, oh, like if you're in the grocery store and you get too close to someone and say, oh, sorry, let me just sneak past you. So there are some Midwestern sayings. We use the word pop instead of soda. Down south, they might use the term y'all more frequently than you might hear that here. But that also depends on the different cultural groups to which you belong, because that's also a part of dialect as well. So that's a really quick, brief overview of different literary elements. To be honest, I don't think I'm going to be able to embed them within this YouTube video, but I will send you information with those different terms and some examples as well. And so I want you to be thinking about those, and then once you've thought about those, I want you to go back into the pedestrian text that I had sent you. So I had sent you a PDF of that. I want you to go into that and highlight it, right? I want you to highlight different areas or different quotes in the text where you feel like you're seeing one of those literary elements, and then I want you to comment. So you might highlight a quote and say, this is characterization. You don't necessarily need to tell me why at this point because we're all still learning right now. But just give it your best guess, and then I'll send you back feedback about that. All right, you guys. Well, can't wait to see you guys. Hope it's soon. All right, bye.